Recently, the Greater Nashville Technology Council hosted a special forum for NTC members to connect directly with some of 2023's mayoral candidates on issues that matter most to them. My name's Clark Buckner of Relationary Marketing, and I sat down with each candidate to discuss their vision for the future of technology. Here's what they had to say about how they'll ensure that Nashville's tech industry remains diverse and inclusive for generations to come.
First, that requires recognizing that that is a critical imperative that serves our strategic ends and is not just a feel-good initiative. Actually making sure that you are opening the floodgates so that every person has the potential to actually realize their best outcomes, their best futures, is actually how you get the best ideas onto the table. It's how you get capital into the companies that are going to actually transform the economy. It's how you get the real work done. And it's deeply mission critical in a place like Nashville, where people almost, we've seen too many economic development initiatives that don't really help us. And if you're not very serious about moving the ship on that direction, then I think you're going to see less support across the community for these endeavors. And so that means that you start much earlier from the K through 12 system into our education pipeline to ensure that we are doing that work, providing computer science classes, pushing kids into the academic coursework that they're capable of achieving. I've actually passed legislation to do just that. I co-sponsored legislation on trying to get tech across the board in our schools, and also to make sure that every student who's qualified is being pushed into the most advanced coursework for which they're prepared. Too much of the time that doesn't happen, and it's only the people who are selected or whose parents volunteer them that get pushed to achieve. We need to make sure that we're finding talent everywhere and pushing it across the board, and then really working on those transitions between K through 12 into higher ed. And then, but it's not, you can't be a tech capital if you're not thinking about capital. If you don't have the small businesses and the entrepreneurs and the potential founders, if they can't actually access capital, if they can't access the ecosystem of mentors and networks to help them work through ideas, if they can't access the workforce development resources that are usually only available to big companies and less so to small companies, then you're not going to actually create that system that allows those entrepreneurs and starters of new ideas and new companies to really find a spot and achieve what they can. And I've got the record to back this up. For 9 years in the Senate, I've worked across the aisle, built coalitions to pass over 80 bills. And I think that I'm someone who uses common sense, builds common ground, and bridges divisions to actually get results that matter for people. And that's why I hope people will vote for me this year.
Have to be intentional about what we do. Tennessee State University has a great engineering program in one of the nicest and greatest ones in the country. And I don't think that we've utilized it as much as we could. I think we've got to have some mentorships. If we can teach kids how to play football and basketball at 5 years old, we can teach them some engineering at that age. It's just a matter of building those mentorships. The Nashville State Community College and Tennessee Promise that we have already is also another way to utilize the technology that we need. In fact, when I had a workforce development program, we were very much inclusive in bringing all of the 4 quadrants in to give kids, adults at that point, job opportunities. But we've got to be intentional about where we go and what it is that we do.
It's so important. We have incredible inequity in our city, and that's for lots of reasons. Redlining, geographically, we're actually still very segregated. We have food deserts in some areas, and then some areas of town we have, really prosperous communities. We need to actually focus on triaging the neighborhoods that are in the worst state right now. And there are so many workforce opportunities and technology around all kinds of industries, around music, around, we have a huge auto industry peripheral to our city. As a state senator, I ran bills for remote patient monitoring devices. The healthcare industry is absolutely booming in our state and always has been, and Nashville's the hub for that. And then, of course, the music industry and the burgeoning film and entertainment industry. There are lots and lots of opportunities available. We need to make sure that in the office of the mayor, we are being good venture catalysts and connecting people with those opportunities. I want to add into that the mayor's office also needs to be a place for that, for those opportunities, and quite directly in the administration of the mayor's office, because, moving towards more of a smart city approach is going to require some talent in the mayor's office. And I think that, the efficiencies that we can gain from doing that are something that we absolutely have to support.
Yeah, I think the diversity is one of the real strengths of Nashville. The Nashville that I grew up in looked very different from the Nashville of today. And that growing diversity and richness has made our city an even more attractive place. It is important to be intentional to reaching out to communities, again, to give folks the opportunity. It may be the right thing for somebody to go into tech. It may not be. It's not about forcing people into something, but it is about opening the door, giving everyone a seat at the table so that they have the option, whatever that may be. And there are lots of barriers out there that we need to address: affordability, transportation, but it's about making sure that we're removing those barriers, inviting folks intentionally to the table to give them an opportunity to be a part of it. I think it's exciting.
As an educator, one thing I love to study is curriculum. And we want to make sure that the curriculum is consistent across all neighborhoods and all classrooms in Davidson County, because we know that Davidson County is so diverse in its population. We have the Kurdish population, Indian, Bhutanese, African American, Latino, white. Our population is so diverse. So we want to make sure that those that are coming in to Nashville of different cultures, that they have the opportunity to be presented the curriculum of IT. So that's number one. And number two, here's an idea. Just because a person doesn't have a teacher certification in the field of IT doesn't mean that we can't get members of the IT community to give them a stipend to come teach in our classrooms, give them a temporary certificate teaching license, right? To have that taught in our schools, our area schools, so that kids are interested in it. And if they want to go further in it when they get to high school, they can actually get a certificate and then move right into the work field.
Well, look, we have a lot of work to do as a community in that regard. My only, what I always tell folks is look at not what somebody talks about when they're doing political speak, sitting in the type of seat I am today, but look at what they did before they got into a seat of talking about running for mayor. When I was at Alliance Bernstein, we set up our first DEI office under me. We hired the first diversity recruiting folks under me. We made sure that we had objectives and goals for all the senior management, particularly when we were moving to Nashville. For our hiring goals, this is what we wanted to do from a diversity and inclusion perspective. Back in 2019, when I was, again, still at Alliance Bernstein, I publicly spoke out about a bill that I thought was discriminatory. Nashville Business Journal wrote an editorial saying Jim Gingrich must be lonely because I was the first person to speak out against that bill. We do have so much to do as a community. The fact is that you look at how our children are doing in school. It is, I think we all know that kids of color are 10 or 12 points behind in terms of reading scores versus the overall average. That's unacceptable. If you are born poor, in the city of Nashville, you are more likely to remain poor than in 80% of the cities in the United States. That is unacceptable. So we have a broad challenge in this space, but within the tech space, again, I think the mayor can take a leadership role, and it has to do with both encouraging our private companies, showing them what can be done both in the mayor's office, in Metro, but then more broadly, being the champion of pushing in this direction, being willing to invest in these types of reskilling programs, being willing to ensure that in every MNPS school we have these types of skills being taught to our kids. This is a challenge. I know it from firsthand experience, but it is also something that we can make progress on.
When I think about, that's a great question. And, I just got something that came to mind that I shared in one of the sessions. When I think about technology, I think about two people right now in my life that have impacted my life. I think about my uncle, which I mentioned, Dr. Ernest Walker.
You mentioned him on the intro when everyone got to hear from the candidates.
Absolutely,
right?
Absolutely. And he was a big techie. I mean, from analog to digital to the barcode to so many inventions that he has under his name as a small scientist, okay, as a scientist. And the fact that he is African American in these fields is impressive to the point that you feel proud, okay? I wouldn't say impressive because he's African American, but impressive because this is such a complex field. And people being able to flourish in these fields from wherever they come is important. So I think about him and the things that he has gone through, some of the ups and downs that he also experienced while he was in the tech field and when he lived, but it was very good to him as far as his life is concerned. So I heard you say the question about the fact being able to, to be able to support your family. Well, then I think about my son. Various is now in a software school here in Nashville. He has his associate degree from Mount San Antonio College, Mount SAC, as they say, from West Covina, California. That's where he attended for 2 years. And then he also has his four-year degree from Lincoln University. Now, he's gotten those degrees in kinesiology and could have gone into the workings of the body and things like that. And, of course, it requires you to have advanced degrees. But my son has decided, and he's now in school, to go into data analytics. He's in a software school. And I look at him and I said, Furious, can you do that? He said, Mother, when I graduate, I can go into a 6-figure digit job. I said, really? I believe that. But I'm saying about my son, and he has a building. He was up last night working on his assignments. But my point is this. Furious is 26 years old, okay? Everybody may not go to college, but those who go to college may decide to even make a pivot to go into technology, tech schools, things like that. But what if you don't want to go to college and you want to go into tech school? That's possible.
That's good.
So you would start in school. That's where you have to meet people where they are. And if you're talking about influencing students, men, women, to go into those areas, you have to be in the schools. You have to talk about what is the appreciation of being in that field. And you meet people where they are so that they will choose that field, because that's a workforce we're going to need. And that's a workforce that's going to be very, very amplified and exponentially grow.
So one of the most important principles is an organization called CS for All, which has had a relationship with the city in the past. But I remember years ago, I tried to convince the mayor's office to engage a couple of Code for America fellows, because I think a lot of times when you are a young person and you have some exposure to technology, it can inspire you in ways you didn't necessarily anticipate. And I'm not saying that everybody needs to be a programmer per se, but when you start to even see the applied interfaces, if you're going into music technology, where there's a whole bunch, there's a new frontier of the ability to create music and then, add video to it, and suddenly you can participate in social media in ways that you didn't anticipate. The opportunity to go viral for a young person is a very exciting thing. But I think fundamentally it's about attacking that digital divide and making sure that people have the same experience I had. I got to start programming when I was in second grade in Metro School's Encore program. And it led to a lifetime of opportunity. We need to make sure that we're at least offering those entry points everywhere from the elementary school level all the way up through high school, and then continuing into college with our local colleges and universities, having programming that either offers creating technology or applied technology.
It sounds like you're really looking forward to this possibility.
I couldn't be more excited to be here on a day where we're at the intersection of two of my favorite things, which is civics and technology.
Thanks for watching. This episode has been a production of Relationary Marketing in partnership with the Greater Nashville Technology Council.